that is the plant kingdom, right? Today we are going to see the last class of the plant kingdom, and that is the Angiosperms, right? In the previous videos, right, there are 4 different parts of this chapter, and this is the 5th part of this chapter. If you wish to check the previous 4 parts of this video, you can check the description box for it. Okay? So let's start with today's topic, that is Angiosperms, right? Angiosperms are said to be flowering plants, right? Flowering plants means those plants which bears what? Flowers, right? Now flowers are said to be the reproductive unit of a plant. That means a particular flower can be responsible for the production of the fruit and seeds, right? Seeds are covered by fruits, right? That means as this particular class, the plants which are coming under this class, it contains flower, and for this reason what happens? These flowers are responsible for forming the fruits, and as the fruits are present, the seeds are present inside the fruit, right? That is why the seeds are covered by the fruits, right? And the pollen grains and ovules are developed in flower. The pollen grains are said to be the male gametes, and the ovules are said to be the female gametes, right? So what happens here? The pollen grains and the ovules, these 2 of them, they are developed inside the flower, and as these 2 of them are responsible for the formation of a fruit, it is known as a particular angiosperm, right? Size varies from tiny microscopic wolfia to tall trees eucalyptus, right? So we can say that in this particular types of plants, what we can see is, we can see small tiny microscopic plants also, as well as we are also able to see several tall trees, right? The example of tiny or microscopic plant in the angiosperm is wolfia, and the example of a tall tree in the angiosperm is eucalyptus. This can be asked in MCQ, and for this reason I have underlined them separately. Now, these angiosperms provide food, fodder, fuel and medicine. Now food, how you can say that this particular plant produces or provides us food? So the fruits which we are eating in a daily basis, right, what it is? It is a kind of food which is being given by this kind of plants, right? Then there is presence of fodder also, or we can say it also provides fodder. That means the food of several animals. Fuel, right? That means the food, and also the particular plant is useful for giving the fuel. And last is medicine. That means that it is also useful in the production of several medicines. So these are the 4 things which we get from angiosperm plants. The male sex organ is stamen and female is pistil, right? This you have already learned in 10th standard, right? That the male sex organ is known as stamen and the female sex organ is known as pistil, right? Ovules have embryo sac, right? Now the particular ovules, they have embryo sac, the sac which is in which the embryo develops, right? And for this reason it is said to be embryo sac. It undergoes meiosis and forms egg apparatus with 1 egg cell nucleus, right? Now, see, two male gametes are transferred, right, through the process which is known as pollination, right? So, the pollination takes place, and upon the occurrence of the pollination, what happens? The male gametes are transferred from one plant to the another plant, or we can say from one flower to the next flower. Now, two male gametes are transferred. So, now what happens with the two gametes? Let's see. So, the first male gamete fuses with the egg, right? So, the first male gamete is responsible for carrying out the syngamy, that is the fusion of the male and female gametes, right? So, the first male gamete fuses with the female egg, right? And this is known as what? Syngamy. And upon the fusion of the male and female gametes, what is formed? A zygote. And when the zygote develops itself, it converts to embryo, right? What happens of the second male gamete? The other male gamete fuses with secondary polar nucleus, right? So, this secondary polar nucleus which was formed upon the fusion of the two polar nuclei, now it is having two nucleus because the two polar nuclei were fused with each other. So, right now it is 2n, right? But what happens when the other male gamete, or we can say the second male gamete, when fuses with this secondary polar nucleus, so this 2n gets converted to 3n, which is known as primary angiosperm nucleus. So, when the secondary polar nucleus is fused with the second male gamete, it forms PEN, and that is primary angiosperm nucleus. So, this is the two types of the fusion which is taking place. So, the two different male gametes differently fuses with the different terms, or we can say with the different parts or structures, right? So, this is all about the basics of the angiosperms, right? Now, the angiosperms are further classified into two types, right? The first is monocotyledons and the second is dicotyledons, right? Monocotyledons, that means monocots, and dicotyledons, and simply we can say dicot, right? Now, this monocot and dicot, what is the difference between them, right? So, I have written here the difference, right? So, the word itself says that mono means one and di means two, right? So, here the particular seed which cannot be divided into two equal parts, then those type of seeds are known as monocotyledons, right? That means they are not able, we cannot separate or we cannot split them into two equal halves, right? But when we are talking about dicotyledons, the particular seed can be divided into two equal parts, and that is said to be dicotyledons, right? So, monocotyledons, that means one single cotyledon, and dicotyledons means two cotyledons, right? Then, the second difference, that in monocotyledons we are seeing parallel venation, right? Parallel venation, that means the venation. Venation means the veins which are present on the leaves, right? So, the leaves, they are containing which type of venation? A parallel type of venation. And this parallel type of venation, that is, I have drawn here, this is the leaf and it is having what? Single parallel type of veins, and that is nothing but which type of venation? Parallel type of venation. This you are going to study in detail in chapter number 5 in 11th science, right? Now, in dicotyledons, what you can see is reticulate venation. Reticulate venation means the veins are not in a proper manner. It is spread all through over the leaf. I have drawn here the second part also, the second leaf, where you can see that there is no specialized veins which are present. A midrib is present, and from the midrib so many different veins are forming, right? And that type of venation is said to be reticulate venation, and it is seen in dicotyledons, right? The third difference is in monocotyledons, fibrous root system is observed. Fibrous root system means the roots are present in the form of fibers, and when we are seeing for the dicotyledons, we can see the taproot system. That means simply a primary root is present and the taproot means it is separated just like in the parts parts of the soil, right? So that type of system is known as taproot system. In monocotyledons, closed vascular bundle is present, right? Vascular bundle that is made up of two types of tissues. We can say two types of permanent tissues. First is xylem and second one is phloem. So xylem and phloem combine with each other, and when the structure is formed, that is said to be vascular bundle. And these tissues are known as vascular tissues. So in the monocotyledons, the vascular bundle is closed, right? And when we are talking about dicotyledons, the vascular bundle is open, right? And next is more number of vascular bundles are found in monocotyledons and less number of vascular bundles are found in dicotyledons. So if we want to see the difference, we can see that if we are able to see so many vascular bundles, then it will be a monocot. And if less number of vascular bundles are present, then it will be dicot. The example of monocotyledons you can see is banana, wheat, rice, right? So these are the examples of monocot, and examples of dicot are gram, right? Then apple, right? So this all are the different examples of monocot and dicot. So this is the difference between the monocotyledons and dicotyledons, right? And these are the two main classes of angiosperms, right? Now the double fertilization, right? Now the double fertilization, what do you mean by double fertilization? Fertilization means the fusion of the male and the female gamete, and double means two times, right? So let's see what exactly double fertilization is. As the two male gametes fuse with different structures, that is egg cell and the two polar nuclei, that is secondary polar nucleus, to form angiosperm. So for the formation of the angiosperm, what happens? Two types, or we can say the two gametes fuses with two different things or with two different structures, as we have seen here, right? The first male gamete fuses with the egg cell, that is the first one, and the second male gamete fuses with the polar nuclei. We can see the two polar nuclei, but it is known as secondary polar nucleus. So first male gamete fuses with the egg cell to form the zygote, and that is syngamete. So that is the first fertilization. Second is the fusion of the secondary polar nucleus with the second male gamete, and upon this what is formed? Primary endosperm nucleus, and for this reason it forms a endosperm. So this is the second type of fertilization which is taking place. Since fertilization takes place twice, it is known as double fertilization. So the first fertilization was with the egg cell, and that is syngamete, and the second one was with the secondary polar nucleus to form the endosperm. So two different types of fertilizations are taking place, and for this reason it is known as double fertilization. So this is all about the fifth class of this chapter, that is angiosperm. The next topic and the last topic of this chapter is plant life cycles and alteration of generations, right? So I have drawn here the three types of life cycles of plants which are seen in different classes of the particular plant kingdom, right? The first one is haplontic type of life cycle, the second is diplontic, and the third is haplodiplontic, right? So what is the difference between the three of them? We are going to see this in this topic, right? Let's see the first one, that is haplontic, right? Haplontic, that is haploid, right? So starting with the gametogenesis, right? So what happens in the gametogenesis? The gametogenesis is the process of the formation of the gametes, that is the formation of the male and the female gametes. So when the gametogenesis is taking place, it divides through mitotic division, that is mitosis takes place, and it forms what? The gametes. And when the gametes are formed, what happens? They go for the syngamete, that is the fertilization of the male and the female gametes. Upon the fertilization of the male and the female gametes, as two of the gametes, both of them are haploid, what happens? when they are fusing with each other, they form a diploid zygote, right? That is the 2 and that is zygote. Now this zygote is undergoing meiosis, right? So when the meiosis takes place, what happens? Haploid things are produced, but haploid things are what? The spores. So the spores, upon carrying out the meiotic division, what happens? They form what? Spores. And these spores are haploid in nature. So from the diploid zygote, haploid spores are formed. So from these haploid spores, these spores are responsible for giving rise to the gametophyte, and that is nothing but the male sex organ, right? Or we can say the female sex organ, right? So it is going to form the 2 gametophytes, either male gametophyte or the female gametophyte, right? Again, it will be also in a haploid manner, right? Again, what happens? This is undergoing for the gametogenesis, that is the production of the gametes. And again, what happens? It is undergoing mitosis. Then the fusion takes place, it forms diploid, and the cycle continues. So this type of haploidic life cycle, what happens? The haploid spore forms the gametophyte, and this, when it forms the gametophyte, this particular stage is known as dominant vegetative phase, right? As this particular portion is said to be the dominant one, and for this reason it is dominant vegetative phase. So this is the first type of life cycle, and that is haplontic life cycle. The second type of life cycle is diplontic. In diplontic type of life cycle, what happens? The gametogenesis here was taking place through mitosis, but when we are talking about the diplontic life cycle, it takes place through meiosis, and for this reason, what is produced upon the gametogenesis, which is taking place by the meiotic division, it forms haploid things, right? So the haploid gametes which are formed, these haploid gametes are undergoing syngamy, that is the fusion of the male and the female gametes. So here, as the male and the female gametes, they both of them are haploid in nature. Upon fusion, right, they form diploid zygote. When the diploid zygote is formed, this diploid zygote is having the ability to carry out or to give rise to a diploid sporophyte. Sporophyte is a structure on which the spores are produced, right? So as this zygote was already in diploid nature, what happens? This has the ability to directly form the particular sporophyte, which is also diploid in nature. As the particular zygote is again giving rise to a diploid sporophyte, for this reason, this particular life cycle is depicted as diplontic life cycle. This diploid sporophyte, what they do is, they bear the gametes, and the gametogenesis takes place. Again the meiosis occurs. What happens? The haploid gametes are formed. Again they go for the fusion, zygote is formed, and the cycle continues. So this is the second type of life cycle, that is the diplontic life cycle. So the diploid sporophyte is dominant, independent, and photosynthetic plants. So this sporophyte is diploid in nature, and here in this particular life cycle, the dominant part or the dominant phase which is seen is the sporophyte. It is also independent in nature, that means it is not dependent on any other parts or any other things for its existence, right? As well as they are also said to be photosynthetic plants because they carry out the photosynthesis, right? So this is the second type of the life cycle, that is diplontic life cycle. The third and the last type of the plant cycle, that is haplodiplontic life cycle. What happens in the haplodiplontic life cycle? Here the fusion, or we can say both the phases, that is the haplontic phase as well as the diplontic phase, both the phases are alternately, and for this reason this life cycle is known as haplodiplontic life cycle. What happens here? Upon carrying out the gametogenesis, it forms the gametes, and when the gametes are formed, the male and the female, they fuse with each other to carry out the syngamy, and when the syngamy takes place, that is the fusion of the male and female gametes, a diploid zygote is formed. When the diploid zygote gives rise to the sporophyte, which is also So this particular cycle is carried out from the diplontic cycle, and this particular cycle has been taken from the haplontic cycle. So as it is the fusion of the haplontic and the diplontic life cycle, the name is said to be haplodiplontic cycle. So here what happens upon carrying out the gametogenesis, it forms zygote. Upon carrying out the syngamy, this diploid zygote gives rise to sporophyte, which is again diploid in nature. So in this cycle, that is in the A cycle, what happens? The sporophyte will be the dominant phase, right? And this sporophyte is diploid in nature, but it is undergoing meiosis. So when the meiosis is taking place, what happens? This meiosis is taking, or we can say the reduction is taking place, and for this reason the spores which are formed, they are haploid in nature. So the conversion of the diploid occurs and it is reduced to haploid. So from the diploid sporophyte, haploid spores are formed upon carrying out the meiotic cell division. Now when the haploid spores are formed, this haploid spores give rise to the gametophyte, which was seen here, that this haploid spores were giving rise to the haploid gametophyte. So same way here also what happens upon carrying out the meiosis, these spores which are formed as haploid, this haploid spores have the ability to give rise to a haploid gametophyte. Now this gametophyte has the ability to produce gametes, and these gametes upon carrying out the process of gametogenesis, they carry out or they form the gametes. Then the syngamy takes place, the zygote forms, and the cycle continues. So this is the third type of the cycle, that is the haplodiplontic cycle. So these are the three different types of cycles, that is haplontic, diplontic and haplodiplontic cycle. So these are the alterations in the generations which is taking place through the life cycles in the plants. This was the last topic of the